My God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you abandoned me? My God, why are you so far away when I plead and plead? My God, every day I call to you, still you're never answering. My God, every night I know you hear my voice, but I can't quite seem to find relief. Yet you are holy, enthroned in praise. Israel, they trusted you.
Evening all. Turn to 81 as we start off. 81, He leadeth me.
Heavenly comfort fraught, whatever I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Sometimes mid scenes of deepest gloom, sometimes where Eden's bowers bloom, by waters still or troubled sea, still 'tis His hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp Thy hand in mine, nor ever murmur, nor repine, content whatever, Lord, I see, since 'tis Thy hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. And when my task on earth is done, when by Thy grace the victory's won, in dust cold wave I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me.
Flip over to 374. The longer I serve Him. 374.
Since I started for the kingdom, since my life he controls, since I gave my heart to Jesus, the longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows. The longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows. The more that I love him, more love he bestows. Each day is like heaven, my heart overflows. The longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows. Every need he is supplying, plenteous grace he bestows. Every day my way gets brighter, the longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows. The longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows. The more that I love him, more love he bestows. Each day is like heaven, my heart overflows. The longer I serve him, the sweeter he grows.
Lord, we thank you that we can gather back in your house this evening. Lord, we can look at your word together, we can study, and we can, Lord, I pray we would you work in us so that we could see the world through your eyes. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, off to class, kiddos.
All right. Do you guys have your same handouts from last week? Same handouts from last week is what we have. All right. All righty. Let's see if this works. All right. It's working. All right. Went through that. All right. So we agreed on what the secular biology people say about organization, response to stimuli, homeostasis. That's what we consider life. Okay, whether it's small bacteria all the way up to complicated human beings. Okay? All righty. And then we talked about the two common views about random chance versus special creation. All right. The random chance was mankind was not planned. And we talked a little bit about what that means. And it sounds kind of somewhat depressing. Wait, what do you mean? From a Western civilization point of view, wait a minute. There's no plan? There's no plan here? It's just, all right, make it up as we go? All right. And this is their take on it. This is their mathematical equation. Nothing, completely nothing, because they acknowledge that at one point in time in the universe, there was nothing. And nothing produced everything. Okay, that's their equation. and then which also could lead to eugenics, because if nothing really matters, if no life is precious and mankind was not planned, we don't care, you get the eugenics movement, and which could lead to abortion and other things. Okay? All right. And this is where we left off. Special creation. I believe this is where we left off last week. First part is, okay, it's the belief that the cosmos, the universe, and all life was brought to existence by the creative act of God. Okay? I did not put this in the notes, but it is mentioned in the BFM 2000 under Section 3 about what we should believe about man. It says it right there in the first sentence. Man is a special creation of God. Okay? So that those people who know VeggieTales, okay, God made you special. He loves you very much. It's right there. That's just them redoing and reversing the Genesis 1. Okay? And just as a reminder, our theology, what we believe about God and who he is and what he does and doesn't do, affects our science. Okay? All right? So in the key cornerstone chapters, Genesis 1:1 and John 1:1. All right? I'm not going to spend the time in reading both of those chapters. All right? However, I do have a video covering at least most of Genesis 1 in about 7 minutes. All right? In just a second here. So Genesis 1 and John 1. John 1's more of the immaterial, spiritual side of things. Genesis 1:1 is the actual what we can see. Okay? Questions on that before we show the video? And John, I can't remember if it's on mute on the soundboard or not.
While surveying the site of some ancient ruins, two young archaeologists, Derek and Margot, and their nomad friend Loki, find themselves trapped and sinking in a whirling pool of sand. And when the dust settles, they stare up in awe at a vast chamber filled with giant relics and artifacts from another civilization. And there, at the far end of the cavern, a door with a strange inscription. All who enter these portals pass through time. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was formless and empty. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God separated the light from the darkness and called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. On the second day, God said, "Let the waters separate and form a space, a sky above and oceans below. And let that space be called heaven." On the third day, God said, "Let the waters be gathered into one place, and let dry land appear." God called the dry land earth, and the gathered waters he called seas, and he saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass and seed-bearing plants." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, and God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, the third day. And on the fourth day, God made the stars. And he made the sun and the moon to divide day from night, and to mark the seasons and the years. And God saw that it was good. So on the fifth day, God said, "Let the waters bring forth living creatures." And there were great sea creatures and sea animals of all forms and shapes. And to fly in the skies above, God created every kind of bird. God saw that it was good. And on the sixth day, God made every kind of animal. The beasts of the field, and everything that creeps upon the earth. And said, "Let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness." And so, from the dust of the ground, God formed man and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Man became a living soul. And God made him master of all life upon the earth.
All right. So again, Genesis 1 summed up in about 7 minutes. All righty. So, and I'm going to tie this a little bit into Rich's morning sermon when Rich was talking about the good. If you notice, God's calling everything that he created good. Okay? All right? So all goodness this goes back to our little bit of philosophy and theology. All goodness comes from God. Okay? So everything he made pre-fall, pre-sin was good. So Adam and Eve, they shouldn't have any problems finding the goodness of God because they were literally living and surrounded by it. All right? So I just wanted to paint that picture there. And again, this is the artists and the creators there at Hanna-Barbera, their interpretations of what was happening. Again, we don't know for sure, okay, what it was like before. That's why they had these random artistic images up there. We don't exactly know. Just based upon what we read, and we translate that into visual. Okay? All right. So, as much as I want to say Christianity is united in the creation of the cosmos, we're not. As much as I want to say this. All right? I wish we could all get along, but due to our fallen nature, we're not united here. So, we have three distinct points of view that Christianity holds to. Okay, depending upon what denomination you are, what part of the world you're from, geography matters, cultural matters as well. So the first one, this is probably what you're probably most familiar with, especially in Western culture, is maybe? Oh, it went all at once. Shouldn't. All right, whatever. All right, so the first one is the YEC, the Young Earth Creationism. Okay, that's our first one. Okay, it's the belief that God created the cosmos, the entire universe, in all life in its present forms. Okay, again, no evolutionary chains. Okay, so a giraffe was always a giraffe, dinosaurs were always dinosaurs, chickens were always chickens. Okay, in 6 literal days, around 6,000 years ago. Okay, because that's when 6,000 years ago is roughly when the first historical record started happening. Okay, as far as any inkling of civilization. All right. Some go a little more, some go a little less, but that's okay. And there's some hybrids to this. All right, but this is one of the big ones there. All right. The second one is called progressive creationism. Okay. This is where God created everything, each living organism separately with the capacity to change and adapt to its circumstances over time. All right. So in other words, God created all the plants and the animals, okay, first, and then much later he created humans. Okay. That's progressive creationism. He allowed the animals to, quote unquote, evolve, and then over time, and then humans came later. Okay? And then the third common one is theistic evolution. Okay? God works through the natural process of evolution. So in other words, they acknowledge God, but he's the driving force behind the evolutionary timetables and the evolutionary processes. Okay, those are the three, and there's different hybrids, combinations thereof, and various timetables and things like that. All right, but I have a question. Does the overall timing in our own conclusion matter for a Christian worldview? How? That's true. Well, I'm talking about the creation of the universe. I'm not talking about the... Yeah, just the creation, not everything. Yeah, we're not assuming sin here yet. This is just creation of the universe. But Nancy, you say no. Okay, why? Correct. Yeah, we do see subtle changes, and for example, all right, here's an example of microevolution here, just a microevolution. Okay, when it's very cold outside, what do most of us put on? A coat. Okay? In the wintertime, you see different animals, depending upon what part of the world they're from. They go from a white coat in the wintertime to a brownish, greenish, reddish coat or fur in the spring and summer. Okay? But they don't change the species. It's not like the squirrel becomes a totally different squirrel or the fox doesn't become a completely different fox. They just change their fur based upon the adaptations of the climate. All right? But it doesn't matter because, okay, what does God think about time? What do we know in Scripture that says God about time? It doesn't really matter to him. A day is like 1,000 years to him, and 1,000 years is like a day. Okay? So as far as being a cornerstone, foundational pillar of our theology, having an exact timeline doesn't matter. Okay? Now, the order of this does matter because you can't have, because God makes logical sense here. He's not going to create animals before there's sunlight. It just doesn't work. Yes, correct. Yes. As far as we know, it doesn't say, it doesn't, well, here, let me look at Genesis 1 here. I was reading a little bit about that. That was a good question. Genesis 1, verse 30. And to all the wild beasts of the earth, and to all the birds of the sky, and to every reptile that creeps on the earth, which has itself the breath of life, even every green plant for food, and it was so. So the only thing that kind of died were the plants. No, they are alive because they meet all the criteria that we agreed upon. They're the plants? Yes. Correct. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's guesswork on what we think of, what we know about plants pre-fall. All we know about plants is what would happen after the fall of man. We don't know what kind of regenerative powers those plants may or may not have had prior to sin entering the equation. All right. We do know it was paradise. We do know it was perfect. All right. And I'm assuming the tomatoes were always ripe and there were no worms inside of them. That's or whatever examples you can come up with. I'm assuming those plants, Adam and Eve, they picked up a piece of fruit off the tree, ate it, and that fruit would grow back without any interference or any assistance from us. For those of us who have done gardening on any level, gardening today, at least in Missouri, requires a lot of assistance. Water, fertilizer, weeding. Get this. In the Garden of Eden, the rabbits didn't eat the broccoli that Adam and Eve were going to eat. Yes. Yes. Yeah. When you're the only two in the garden, versus the rest of the animals, yeah, it's true. But you didn't have to put a fence line around the garden to keep out all the critters. Because the critters, think about this, they were perfect. They knew, God had it, in them. They were going to eat what they needed to, and that was it. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Right. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. There's not like a. Right. Correct. Now, out of those three, which one probably is definitely for sure? Can we most likely eliminate then? Yeah. There's this sort of theology stance where it's a branch of Christianity where it's basically deism, where God planted everything and then stepped back and is just letting it watch and develop. What? Yeah, that's the TE, yes. It's a branch of the TE. And so basically God planted and then stepped away and just is watching it through a telescope or whatever. So, but yes, it. Right. Yes. Right. Correct. Yes. Yes. It's still a chicken. It's not the chicken is not going to all of a sudden change to a sloth, or whatever. It's not going to. No, it's not. It's chicken's a chicken. Now within those now if you go to, it used to be Orscheln's, the tractor company. Was it now? Tractor Supply now. Okay. Anyways, you go there there are several different kinds of chickens. Okay. All right. But they're still chickens. They still taste yummy with sweet and sour sauce and rice. Okay. So. But yes, does the overall time. The order matters. I'm going to say this. The order matters. The timing is 6,000 years in exact. That's what. Okay, can we extend that out to 10,000 years? Right. No. It doesn't. It matters to a certain degree, but it doesn't. The order, the progressiveness of it is because it starts with light, and then it progressively gets more complicated into light, darkness, water, land, vegetation, and then the animals come, and then man is separate. Which is why amongst the if I'm ever teaching science, I teach, because most science people teach man is an animal and is part of the animal kingdom. I teach that man is separate from the animals, because right here in Genesis 1, man is a separate part of the creation. Because what's different about him than the other all the other creation? Correct. He didn't speak it. And what else did he do? He breathed. The soul. Okay? And we're going to get to that in the next couple of weeks as well. But yes. Yeah. And he gave us dominion over every other thing in the world. Alrighty. So. Do the viewpoints matter? Yes or no? What do you guys? I'm hearing some yeses. I'm hearing some nos. It does, but is it going to make or break our faith if we decide to believe that it's 500,000 years versus 6,000 years? No, it's not going to make or break. Maybe. We don't know. We don't know if it was a literal six. I mean, yes, there's the Greek. I mean, not the Greek. The Hebrew words there. It's not necessarily day. It doesn't necessarily translate to day in the original Hebrew. It's ages. Yes, calendars have changed. Okay, the Hebrew calendar, it's still around, but the Hebrew calendar, I think it's like the year 4,265 or something like that. It's not 2024 because does anyone know when the Hebrew calendar starts? A little bit before then. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, as long as it doesn't contradict, yes. Right. We know we have the flood because we know we can pinpoint within a decent amount of time, not an exact date or anything, but we can pinpoint the flood. Yes, it is very dangerous. Yes. Yes, because here's my thing is we know Adam, according to the records, Adam lived how long? 900 and some odd. Methuselah was 900. Now, was that an actual 365-day year, or was it that shortened 10? I believe it's the lunar. The Hebrew calendar is on the lunar schedule. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there.
It is, and it's 5784.
5784. Thank you. So as you can see, it's okay. So because our belief is we have this westernized viewpoint on things. I'm like, okay, it wasn't always exactly like that.
I think also sorry for using the mic.
Go ahead.
In the back era. Our definition of day, you have to understand, our definition of day is defined as one revolution around the sun. So when we say there was day one, there was no sun. There was no sun till day 4. So we're defining it based on something that hadn't been created yet. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Now, God's definition there was light and dark, as he used on that. There's definitely room for discussion in that, and it's fun. And then, we can, you look at the not the solar, but the universal, meaning universe, outer space. When you've got stars that are, thousands of light years away, hundreds of thousands of light years away. There's got to be an explanation for some of that too, and that all factors into things within that. But I think, at least in my opinion, doesn't matter. Insofar as God is the origin of creation, then I can have a conversation with you. If it's not, then that's a different conversation we're going to have. But as long as God is the first cause, God is the cause, then we can sit down and discuss and look at that stuff from a theological angle and a scientific angle as well. But when it's God is not part, that's a totally different discussion point at that point.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that because here's the thing. Again, the theology is driving everything else. Who we know God to be is going to drive everything else. As long as we acknowledge that God is the creator of everything in the universe, and he created in this order based on Genesis 1, that's our starting point. Yes. God said it was good. Yes. He used it from our point of view to mark the seasons because we've discovered, God designed it, man discovered that, these star formations are here during the summertime. And the moon, it becomes full every 28 days. Correct. Yes, because again, God is infinite and in his knowledge, and because he planned this. Okay, the sermon this morning, Romans 8:28. I'm going to sum this up. This is Jonathan Bowen's version of Romans 8:28. God says, "I have a plan. Trust me." Okay, and he planned. Think about it. He planned all of this, all these exact positions of the stars and the moon and all of that stuff out there. In addition to all the small detail stuff happening on this planet, he planned that all out. And either spoke it or willed it into existence. Okay? Right. Yes, he could have had trees that were, because here's saying when the animals came around, okay, my question is hunger, is that pre-fall or post-fall? Getting hungry. It's pre. It says right here, I'm going to let you eat in the last couple verses of Genesis 1. You're going to eat of every single plant except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but you're going to eat all these different plants. So the plants had to be ready for these animals. Okay? And the plants had to be ready for man to eat. Okay? And the animals were not going to wait around 6 months for the mulberry trees to produce. It wasn't going to happen. All right? So, all right? It is a division, but here's the deal. We cannot use this as a dividing point amongst believers because that's not biblical. I will say that. Even though people try to divide people up into different camps and things like that, don't let that divide us. Okay? Because that's how Satan does all of this. Okay? Again, the theology is going to drive us. Yes. All right. All right. So that's you bring up a good point. The bookends of Scripture is where we get the most division, I believe. The book, how things got started and how things are going to end, at least in the realm of Christianity, we're very much divided. Okay? We agree that Moses did his thing. We agree that Noah did his thing, and King David and all of the other historical figures, we agree they did this thing, but how did God really create the universe? Or how is God really going to create the new heavens and the new earth? Or how is he going to bring about his kingdom? How is he going to restore the earth to its former pre-fall glory? That's where people. All right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That is yes. But yes. Because unlike Moses and David and all of them, Jesus is in divine nature. The moment you say he's more than just human, that's when the theology comes in, and that's where it gets hairy. Okay? All right. So, 5 core beliefs about life for a Christian worldview. Okay? First things first. Life comes only from pre-existing life. Okay? Life has to come from pre-existing life. Was God alive? See, yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. Are you telling me God was dead? There's a song by Michael Tate and the Newsboys, yeah, that they could contradict you if you want. But yeah, all right. Because here's the thing. We know from a human point of view, if we start with nothing, what do we get? Nothing. Okay? If we start with nothing, you get nothing, which blows my mind because this is how the secularists and the evolutionists think is, okay, the random particles of the universe, they're not alive. Carbon and hydrogen and all the other elements that make it up, okay, they're not living. Until you combine them in certain ways, they're not alive. So randomly, when I shook the Lego bag last week, you shake them randomly enough, you're going to get something that looks like life. You shake carbon and hydrogen and oxygen enough around, you're going to get something that lives. No. Okay? All right? Life comes only from pre-existing life. All right. Second thing, random chance processes do not produce intelligible information. Random chance processes. All right. I'm shaking that Lego bag like I did last week. I'm shaking that Lego bag. I could shake that until my arm falls off, and it's never going to produce a Lego car. I could shake a bag of wet clay until my arm falls off. It's never going to make a nice, neat vase. It's not. Okay? So random chance processes do not produce intelligible information. All right? Think about Scrabble tiles. You shake them out. You shake them out randomly. Okay? You pull 5 or 6 words or 5 or 6 letters out of the Scrabble bag. Those people who play Scrabble. Okay? What are the odds of you getting a word out of those random bags that fall out? It does happen, but here's the thing. Does it always happen? No. You usually have to do what? The good news is you usually have to wait your turn, right? And what do you do when in Scrabble? You build off what? The word before. All right? Unless and it doesn't have to, and you're building off something what was already previously established. Okay? So, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Okay? Intelligent design, that movement came 15, 20 years ago into the public school arena because they had been teaching evolution. I believe it was started somewhere in Kansas. And this isn't the first time Kansas had a controversial school-related court decision, because that's where Brown versus Board in 1954 happened. All right? And the controversy was this teacher wanted to teach intelligent design along with evolution. Like, hey, there was some kind of plan that made all of this stuff in the world and in this universe. Right? It wasn't just some randomized, chaotic, no pattern whatsoever, and all of a sudden, bam, it happened. No. Okay? Yeah. Again, God was alive before the foundations of the universe. Okay? So he was able to speak into existence. Okay? And then we have the random chance do not produce, let's think about it. Random chance processes do not produce intelligible information. All right? Think about a toddler when they're experimenting with their toys. All right? All right? If they're just putting random blocks together, all right, Legos or blocks or whatever, is it going to be any kind of design whatsoever? Maybe in their minds, yes. 10 other minutes, yes. Okay. All right. Yes, when they drop. Yes. Hey, I was thinking about this. My kids are watching the Lego movie on repeat right now. And there's this division between they want to build whatever comes to mind versus following the instructions and building what is supposed to be built. Okay? Now, God did create us to be creative people and creative thinkers and all that, but when it comes to producing intelligible information, there has to be some kind of plan. All right? Ron, I'm just thinking about you. When you're putting your radio stuff together, I assume you have some kind of plan to make sure that you produce the right frequencies so you don't fry your transmitters, and that you can also send and receive information, right? And if you don't, yes, if there's, right. Yes, it doesn't work. All right, which brings us to our next thing. I think it's, all right. All right, so this is part of our, based on experience, language, and information-rich systems always comes from intelligence. This is where intelligent design comes in, okay? We know things work, okay, based on a combination of things. It's experience, language, either written or verbal, and information-rich systems always comes from intelligence. The first recorded writing, some of the oldest writings, guys, it was organized, and it was basically a receipt for a business transaction. Okay? That's some of the oldest stuff that was written on some stone tablets in the Middle East. Because the people who don't believe this, and I ask this question: what about computers? In order to build a computer, before the computers are dumb. I don't care if they're hooked up to the internet or not. Computers are dumb. Whatever you put into it, you're going to get, you're going to get out of it. Okay? So it's you as the intelligent being have to put the computer together and design and plug it in correctly, just like Grant is doing with those little circuits, and make sure it works properly. Otherwise, it doesn't work. God did the same thing. If we did all this, he built all these things in the universe, and he built it just so and designed it just so and planned it out in order for it to work properly. All right. Yeah. All right. All right. Number 3, okay, belief about life. Because here's things. We have some things that, as much as we have scientific advancements in microscopes and telescopes and all sorts of other scopes, okay, we have to acknowledge that the immaterial world is real. The spirit realm is real. Okay? Okay. And we've answered this question before, but who's in charge? What? God is in charge, but is it mind over matter, or is it the other way around? Mind over matter, or matter over mind? Matter being the physical, the mind being the immaterial. What has control? The mind or matter? The mind does, okay? Because everything that we do is dictated from the mind as far as the human's perspective goes, okay? John 1:1, okay? In the beginning was the Word, okay? That's referring to the Spirit of God, just like in Genesis 1:1, okay? The Spirit of God, okay? The immaterial world is Word. Without the immaterial world, we do not exist. Right? Because is God material or immaterial? Yeah, God, yeah. I mean, yes, Jesus was material for 30-something years, 33 years or so. But God the Father, he's immaterial. Okay? He's spirit. All right? All right, number 4. Okay? Living organisms, it doesn't matter how small or how big they are, give the appearance of design. All righty? All right, and I have under this one, this one I'm going to spend a little bit of time on here, is the irreducible complexity argument. All right? The evolutionists believe that we evolved from less complicated, less complete, to the completed organisms we see now. Okay? That's the evolutionary step process. But however, they've yet to be able to explain away rationally the irreducible complexity argument. Has anyone heard of that before? Other than maybe John. I know John probably has. The irreducible complexity argument. Rich, you didn't have this in any of your... Okay. Okay. All right, so let's break this down. Irreducible. Irreducible. Okay. You can't change it. You can't change. Yeah. Think of fractions. Oh, I'm getting my math gear on here. All right. Think about 1/3 is an irreducible fraction. You can't make it smaller. Okay. You can't make it any less complex. All right. It's as simple as it's going to get. All right. Complexity. All right. All right. How detailed? How many different moving parts are there? All right. And then argument. Okay. That's should be self-explanatory. Just ask my kids. All right. So, Iridose complexity argument. Now, one of the things that we know, okay, quite a bit about, not everything, but we know a lot about the human body, okay? And evolution doesn't make sense with the human body, all right? For example, the eyes, okay? I can't remember the exact amount of different parts of the eye going from the octave nerve, the pupil, the iris, and all of the different parts of the different veins and all that. The eye, if you were to take one component of the eye out, it doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't work. All right? So think about that. Would we have an entire generation to spend 25,000 years in blindness? Would we have survived as a civilization? No. No. Okay? The eye, if we take one of those components out, it doesn't work. All right? All right, yes. It doesn't work. Give any more practice, given people don't necessarily understand too much about biology, but think about a cake. Think about you're making a cake, and all of a sudden you leave out the salt or the sugar or the leavening agent out. You leave any one of those out, you leave the sugar out, it's no longer cake. It's bread. All right. If you leave the leavening agent out, yeah, it's a pancake. Tortilla. It's uh-huh. If you leave the eggs out of the cake, it doesn't hold itself together. True. Maybe. But if you leave the eggs out of the cake, it's going to fall apart. It's not going to be a cake. It's going to be a crumbled mess or a gooey mess, depending upon how long you cook it. All right. And again, there's there is a design here. Car designs. How many different part components of a car are there? Personally, I think there's too many with the newer cars. Yeah. Somewhere between the Flintstones and what we have right now, that's where we need to be. All right. I think the 1960s was probably peak design for cars. But again, there was someone who designed those cars. Okay? If you take away a certain component of a car, if you take away the tires, it's no longer a car. It's a roadblock. If you take away the engine or certain parts of the engine, it becomes a giant paperweight. Irreducible complexity. That's what the irreducible complexity argument is. Okay? There is a design, and God has given all the essentials there. Okay? Now, we humans, we've added to it, haven't we? We've added to our original designs in some way, shape, or form, right? All right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's many people, our eyes, because of the fall, our eyes don't necessarily operate at maximum efficiency, and so we have to wear contacts or glasses. Okay? Nothing wrong. We got to be able to see. All right? All right, next thing. All right? The fifth thing. Okay, this is the last thing. All right? Scientists, regardless of what has come out in secular circles, scientists, the more they've studied biology, the more they've studied physics, the more they've studied the universe, okay, are bailing on the theory of evolution as currently constructed. Because I don't know what the biggest timetable is right now, but I know it varies between like 6 billion and 10 billion years or something like that. It's astronomical. Like, one of the things is, okay, Scientists have done studies on how much the sun has contracted, because it contracts so much every single year. And some scientists backtracked it using lots of math on, okay, if we backtrack the sun's size to 1 million years ago or 2 million years ago or whatever millions of years ago it was, the sun's coronosphere would be roughly where Venus is. What's the problem with that? We would not be here, okay? We've discovered that the Earth is in this what's called the happy zone, okay? It's far enough away from the sun where we're not going to be burnt to a crisp like Mercury is. We know what Mercury is like, a charred, looks like the pizza that you left in there for 2 hours, all right, in an oven, okay, on 500 degrees. That's what Mercury looks like. Venus, kind of similar, but Earth, we're in this happy zone. We're just far enough away where we get, depending upon what part of the world we're in, we get 4 seasons, we get plant life, we get oxygen, we get all the things that just, wait a minute. It's as if we were designed and we were put here in this happy zone just far enough away to have just enough heat and light from the sun that we're going to be comfortable. All right? So, yes. All right? But yeah, it's one of these things that's, it doesn't work. All right? The light, the distances from, Ron, you mentioned the distances from the stars are so many thousands of light years. Somehow they measured with the telescopes and all that, thousands of light years. Someone estimated there was a star that they saw was 1 million light years, and according to their math, it would take 1 million years for the light particles to travel from that star to reach our visual range. Okay? But we already see them. All right? So, like you said, God probably already put that light particles into motion right at the onset of the universe, and they're already there. Because that's what he needed for it to happen. Right. Right. Yes, true. It's true. It all comes back down, again, the intelligent design. Okay? You can make any, us humans, we can make just about anything we want to make. Think about it. Cars, cabinets, model railroad stuff, whatever. Okay? We design that and we have a plan, and if it works out well, that means that we followed our plan and it works. Versus when we just try to throw a bunch of random things together, it doesn't work. All right? All righty? The theory of evolution, it's too much. And this is what scientists don't, some of them don't want to listen to reason because they did not take logic. I will say this, a lot of them didn't take logic classes. Is that Darwin actually refuted a good portion, not all of it, a good portion of his own evolutionary findings prior to his death, because I believe he was Catholic or Anglican, one of the two, and was trying to fill in the gaps of his own faith with Genesis 1. Okay, that's what he originally designed to do, and then and it came back full circle towards the end of his life, where it was not 3 million years, 10 million, whatever it is. So, but yes, conclude there's got to be a design, especially among the physics people. Like, gravity works. How? We don't know. Therefore, okay, but we know, based upon our own logic, someone had to design it because gravity works consistently. We know this. So, in order for us to have some kind of, working mechanism, we had to have some design. Okay? Questions? Comments? Concerns? What? Okay. All right. Right. Yes. But right. Does it for? Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. Well, the sin and the fall were simultaneous, if that makes sense. Right. Not necessarily because we don't know how long they were in the garden. True, we do know what days mean, but do we know how many years Adam and Eve spent in the garden before the fall? Yes. Yes, we know the days. Yes. Okay, when it's referring to the days or ages, times, years, time frame, whatever, um, which is the Hebrew word there, but we don't know how long Adam and Eve spent in the garden prior to the fall. No. Yeah, start of creation, yes. And again, we don't know how. Right. Yeah, we couldn't measure days until who? Adam? That had to have been a construct of whatever was of that time frame, of that time period, because yeah. Yeah. They had to because think about it, we had to, yes, God put everything in motion, right? All right. And man had to figure out, okay, well, we based upon the constellations. Okay, we've seen these constellations before about a year. They're in the exact same spot, and they came up with that measurement as far as years and days and months and stuff like that. Okay, so and the sundials and all. Yes, so, but yes, I'm not going to say the fall and sin happened simultaneously, but we do not know how long creation was around before that happened. Scripture doesn't say. Yes. Yes. Right. Was it a lunar cycle, or was it a solar cycle, or was it
The
Jewish
because
calendar has been revised just because of there's the leap years and there's they reevaluated things. In our calendar, we've revised our calendars. The current calendar we have is not the same calendar as in the past, and so you get into the whole discussion again is what's the definition of the day of the year even? How long has that actually been? Are we talking literal 365 days? The lunar calendar is not 365. It's more than that. So even though the Jewish calendar says we're 5,057 or whatever I said it was, again, we're operating on a construct of we're viewing it from the world as we see it at this moment, the way we use those things. We even have a calendar. And so there's some discrepancy there's discrepancy in our own calendars. We revised that, about 1300, I believe. Our own calendar changed.
Yes.
And so I don't say that to argue one way or the other. And that it's just that we have to be, that's where we have to be careful on our terminology, of what we're meaning, and where that goes. If we operate on that Adam and Eve sinned on day one, we also say Adam was 938 and changed, somewhere in the neighborhood years old, but how old was Adam when he was created? Do we count for that? Do we not account for that? Are we going to count time when they're in the garden before death even occurs? If death, that's another question. Did death occur pre-fall or not? There is some that think there might have been death as far as animals. Of course, one of the arguments there is, well, how would Adam and Eve know what death was? If God said, you're going to die, how would they even know what death is if they had never seen death? Again, I don't raise that as an endorsement one direction or the other, because honestly, I'm not a settled view on that any longer. There's a lot of and I think that's where it goes back to the point being, there's a lot of discussion in this, but if we allow this to be the dividing issue, then we're ignoring what the purpose of Genesis 1 through 3 is even. It's not a DIY manual on how to create your own world, or even how God did it. It's really the story of God wanting to partner with creation, us mucking it up, and then him having to come in and fix it. And again, it all boils back to it's about Jesus. I think that's where we've got to remind ourselves, if Jesus isn't the core of our discussion and the end point, then the rest of it's just conversation. But it can be a fun, if not challenging, area to discuss. There's well-respected theologians on all sides on this issue, and that's the people that are far smarter than all of us, that argue one way or the other. Even in seminaries, in SBC seminaries, we'll have this discussion as well.
All right. Does that make sense? Okay. But yes. Okay. So, but yeah, it is, again, our theology is the cornerstone versus all right. If we go back to, let's see how fast I can go back here. All right. Our first lens right here, that's the most important. Without that first lens, we don't see anything at all. If we just skip, if we block off that theology and just use this, it's not going to focus right. Okay? So our theology there, that is what is going to matter. And if we go back to our notice theology, I put it there in the corner it's a corner piece. I put it there for a reason. Okay? Because usually when you put puzzles together, you usually find the what piece first. The corner pieces, right? All right? Why? Why do we find the corner piece? Everything builds off of that. All right? You can build two pieces, sometimes three, depending upon what kind of puzzle you have, at the exact same time. Okay? All right. That's about it for this evening. Next week, we're changing from biology. We've studied the physical realm. We're going to venture into the next several weeks into the immaterial realm with psychology and sociology.